The most news in the morning. CNN's American Morning. Weekday, 6 a.m. Eastern.
You ever wonder how an airline's on-time performance can be so high, even though it seems that your flight is always leaving the gate late and then sitting out there for a half an hour waiting to take off? Could they possibly be fudging the numbers? And why do they always tell us to turn off our cell phones and our laptops? Can they really interfere with the pilot's instruments? Well, the cat's out of the bag in the upcoming issue of Reader's Digest, which details the 50 secrets that your pilot won't tell you. Some of them, though, he'd like you to know. He or she, that is. Joining us now to divulge some of those secrets, gathered from 17 national and regional pilots from across the country, Peggy Northrup. She's the editor-in-chief at Reader's Digest. Great to see you this morning.
Thank you for having me.
So we've broken this down into some categories. First category is secrets that pilots actually would like you to know. Now, this, I take it, is pilots at major airlines would like you to know that you're not always flying on a major airline.
That's exactly right. And what they really want you to know is it's not the size of the planes, because often you pull up to your plane, you've booked online, you think, oh, I'm flying on some major American airline, and it's a little plane with 50 seats, and you think, well, is this really the airline? It's actually a regional affiliate, and those pilots do not have to follow the same training and safety rules, and they're entry-level jobs, paying about $20,000 or $30,000 a year.
As we learned with that Colgan crash in Buffalo. In fact, here's how one pilot put it. Here's his exact quote. It says, quote, "You may go to an airline website, buy a ticket, pull up to its desk at the curb, and get into an airplane that has a similar name painted on it, but half the time you're really on a regional airline, not held to the same safety standards." So there's a secret that major airline pilots would like you to know about. Now, here's something interesting that they don't want you to know about, and it has to do with how much fuel they're carrying.
Yes, I was really surprised by this, that they're under a lot of pressure not to carry fuel, because of course that raises your cost. But there you are circling around and you're in a delay, and sometimes they have to go land somewhere else because of those rules. So they're really playing that margin very, very close.
Yeah, because if they do carry more fuel just to have as a reserve, it actually costs more to fly the plane because the plane is heavier. So with all this cost cutting and all the margins so slim, the airlines are cutting back on how much fuel they carry. When to worry, and this is an interesting one that I found. Here's what one pilot told you, quote, "It's one thing if the pilot puts the seatbelt sign on for passengers, but if he tells the flight attendants to sit down, you better listen."
That's when you pay attention. And also, they say that it doesn't make any sense to them that the stewardesses in turbulence can be pushing a cart down the hall, down the aisle, and yet when they're going 5 miles an hour pulling up to the gate, they have to be strapped in like they're in NASCAR.
Exactly, with those three-point harnesses. Interesting myth too about infants on laps. You know how they say if you've got an infant, a baby in arms, I think is what they call it. What happens in an emergency situation with that baby?
The pilots say that you can very, very easily lose hold of your baby. It can become a projectile. I would never do this again. I guess the government's thinking is that if they made you buy an expensive seat, you might drive instead, and you're actually not as safe if you drive. But still, after reading this, I would never have.
So they allow you to carry an infant in arms, even though if you were to get into an emergency situation, there's probably no way that you could, because the baby's 12, 15 pounds. Right. You think you can hang on to 12, 15 pounds when you're in some sort of collision like that? Probably not. When not to worry, because passengers always overreact when they're getting into turbulence. And here's one of your favorites. You say, quote, "Pilots find it perplexing that so many people are afraid of turbulence. It's all but impossible for turbulence to cause a crash. We avoid turbulence not because we're afraid the wings are going to fall off, but because it's annoying." A pilot by the name of Patrick Smith told you that one.
That's right. And the other one that I really liked was lightning. Lightning doesn't scare them at all. You hear a big boom, they say airplanes are built to take this, so it's really not a problem.
We've seen some spectacular video of planes getting hit by lightning, and there's the plane flying along in the sky, and the lightning comes down, goes in one end, and comes out the other. So they're shielded, so you're going to hear a noise, maybe a flash, but nothing to worry about.
That's right.
But the turbulence one is interesting because anytime I fly a lot, it starts to get bumpy. People start to go white.
Yes, they do. They do. But it's the sudden updrafts that are a problem, because those you can't see on the radar at night, and you can hit that, as they said, it's like 500 miles an hour hitting a speed bump.
And those are what cause problems, people flying around the cabin, that sort of thing. Silly rules explain. Now, this is one that, I mean, this is a pet peeve with me. Cell phones.
Yes, cell
do
phones.
cell phones really affect an airplane?
Well, and I worry about the iPad, which has the, it's the equivalent of a watch battery. But still, they say that if 12 people are making phone calls, it could give them a false reading. And I don't really want that to happen.
So it's not the one person
It's
using
not the
a cell
one
phone.
person. It's a collection of people.